again for joining us. This is the Where Does the Time Go? Managing Your Time While Harnessing Your Power workshop. And we have Dr. Finley Cotrone presenting today. She is the director of the SANS Center for Professional Development, associate professor in residence and faculty advisor, hospitality management. And she'll be guiding us beyond the basics of time management, helping to maximize the limited time we have each day. And you can certainly add to your introduction there if you would like. I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome, thank you, Alyssa. So we've got Alyssa and Alistair here, and to kind of alleviate the pressure, I'm going to, now that you've been told to keep your microphone off, I will invite you right from the beginning to turn it on and tell me where your biggest challenges lie, because I want this to be the most useful for the people that have chosen to be here. I am in the hospitality college. My background is in training and development in hospitality. I still do, through both the SANS Center and my own consulting work, a lot with leaders in different areas of the hospitality industry, whether they're managers, general managers, vice presidents. So a lot of my experiences have informed what I'm interested in knowing more about. And this happens to be a topic that pretty much everybody struggles with. So I'm going to open it up for you to either share in the chat or open up your mic and share with us where are your biggest challenges? I don't know. Alistair could go first. Go ahead.
I would say like maybe a big challenge that comes with me is managing so many different moving parts at the same time, because you have to balance work, you got to balance extracurriculars, got to balance schoolwork and those demands.
Yeah.
So I say there's a lot of stress in that particular area that I would say I'm not alone in kind of facing that particular challenge.
That is a really great, is Alistair alone in the challenge of balancing work and school? And obviously you should have fun and you should be able to take advantage of being a student, right? And balancing due dates and projects, and by the way, you still have work, right? I'm gonna guess he's not alone.
We've got some chatter in the chat. So having so much to do and getting overwhelmed, misjudging how long a task will take, finding time for social and personal activities, and same here to Alistair. Everyone can relate.
Yeah, it's definitely on my end. I understand that completely because I am a performance arts major. So a lot of the performances are here at the Judy Bailey at school. And those rehearsals are like 2 months at a time with like 3 weekends of performances. And I'm still taking full-time classes and I still work 10 to 12 hour shifts at my job. So it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely a lot. And it's just just trying to find the time to give everything its respective time. On top of that, sleep and having a social life and everything.
Right, and here's what I would bet, because I don't think, was that Devin that was sharing that? Okay.
Yes, that was me.
I recognize your voice from when you were coaching me on where to stand. So I suspect you're not alone there. Yours is different in that it is performing arts, right? And so the immediacy, by the way, my bachelor's degree, I have a BFA in theater. So
Oh my gosh, so you get me, huh?
I get you, right? And the immediacy of, I go before an audience this weekend, so that takes priority. Now, how do I juggle all the other things? Now, the reality is we've all got our performance date, right? Whether we're actually going on stage or not. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today are really, how do you make the most of your intellect? How do you get the most out of your brain power? And we're going to talk about some things that have only gotten worse because of technology. So I'm hoping, tell me, Alyssa, are there other things in the chat that might modify how we deliver the message?
Let's see.
By the way, I'm speaking really loudly because I feel like I need to. Am I too loud?
No, you're good. You're perfect pitch.
Let's see, we have a couple comments. My biggest challenge is knowing how to do it all when there's no time and procrastination. And then someone offering a suggestion, I find that utilizing a daily, weekly, and monthly planner is imperative to organizing tasks.
Beautiful. And back in the day, I had the Franklin Covey planner and paper, right? That helps with the daily, weekly, monthly tasks and planning. Now, obviously, you can do all of that online. You just have to make yourself do it, right? We're going to talk about a couple of those things on the rules of thumb when we get task focused. So let's just jump in. I call this managing your time while harnessing your power, because I think we all know what we should be doing, right, to manage our time. And how many of us feel guilty when we're just fried? So we might spend an entire Saturday binge watching something on Netflix. The reality is our need to do that is because of all the things that we're juggling, right? So I'm going to give you some of I believe that the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is the best effectiveness book ever written. It's from the 80s. If you haven't read it, please check it out from the library, or there's a PDF online that's a pretty good PDF. I'm not a big fan of Stephen Covey's writing style. I feel like he says in 800 pages what I could cover in a 2-hour workshop, but the concepts are brilliant. So we're actually going to go into some of that. And I call it harnessing your power because we've all got an intellectual capability that if we're using it properly, then it works to our advantage. If we're not using it as we could be as strategically, then we find ourselves toiling. So let's just define time management. Time management is the way we decide to utilize our time in order to maximize our productivity in achieving certain long-term goals, right? You're all master's students, so the easy long-term goal is what?
I was gonna say sleep first, but our main goal is to attain a degree in some sorts.
We need some intermittent sleep in there. And yes, of course, right? That goal that everybody shares is finishing your degree. And the key is staying focused on that so that we don't forget. Now, I'm in the hospitality college, and a lot of times in hospitality, people start building their career and they forget that they're also supposed to be working to graduate. So we have to make sure that we're prioritizing those things that are the most important, and making sure we're also taking care of our whole human being. So, which is also very Covey. So when I say harnessing your power, I mean harnessing your intellectual capabilities. So big question for everybody is, when are you the smartest? So you can type it in the chat. You can tell me, when are you the smartest? Are you smartest first thing in the morning? Are you smartest at midnight? When is your brain working on all cylinders? Alistair?
I'd probably say in the morning, anywhere between 7 a.m. when I start and 11:30.
Okay, so somewhere between 7 and 11. Awesome. Who else?
We've got early morning, late evening, late at night, first thing in the morning after my workout.
Ooh, okay, this is
8 p.m.
good.
to 4 a.m.
Okay, the
Variety.
8 p.m. to 4 a.m. person, you are an enigma to me because, and this, by the way, took me a long time to figure out, I am useless after 6 p.m. Like if I need to do anything that requires intelligence after 6 p.m., forget it. It is not going to work out well for me. I am first thing in the morning, early morning. Somebody's in the waiting room. Thank you. I feel like I have an assistant to listen. I could get used to this. Could you come to all of my classes? That would be amazing. So knowing when you're the smartest is huge, because that's when you should be doing the most intellectually taxing whatever it is, right? If you for work have to put together some sort of budget, the time to do that is when your brain is functioning at all cylinders. If you're working on a research paper, if you're working on, your big project for a class, you should be blocking this time for those things that require the most intellect. When I decided to get my PhD when my daughter was 2. I highly recommend against that. But here the greatest gift it taught me is that I always knew I was a morning person. What I didn't know is that how to schedule that morning to get things done. And I had to figure that out, right? Because assignments, papers, writing, research. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to leverage your brain power, getting the most important or most challenging items done when you are at your most powerful. It is not the time to be looking at your email or doing your laundry when you are at your smartest. Or those assignments that don't take a lot of time, but they're kind of busy work because they want to make sure you read something. Do that when you are less powerful. Here's something else that I actually read. I didn't come up with it. And then I started practicing it that absolutely helped me through graduate school. And that is, let's say you have a big paper to write. Before you go to sleep, read through all of your notes and sleep. When you wake up in the morning, read through those notes again and then start to work on it. If you're not as powerful in the morning like we are, then maybe you read through what it is that you ultimately need to create your work from. And then when you're smarter, you read through it again and then you write. Because while we rest, our brain is taking short-term, right? The short-term memory, putting it into long-term memory. Our brains are problem-solving machines. Their entire goal is to solve problems. So when you feed it information, it will solve the problem while you sleep. Now, if you're somebody that struggles with sleep because your brain doesn't shut off, this is probably not the best thing for you. I am not somebody that struggles with sleep. The world could be falling apart and still the moment my head hits the pillow because my day is so busy, I am out. So play with it a little bit and see what works for you in the letting your brain process the information. For many of us, I'd be willing to bet the sleep is the key. So that's the first thing. Let's talk about interruptions. We are all on our phones, on our email, we're texting. I gotta check my Instagram, I got the socials, what's happening. I have friends texting me all the time, also frenemies, right? Those interruptions are a huge problem for us getting things done. In every job description I've ever seen, the ability to multitask is in there. How many of you have been told you got to get better at the multitasking? Or, hey, multitasking is a big part of what we do here. We've all heard that. Here's the reality. Our brains are not wired to multitask. The term multitask came about in the 60s when computers were larger than this room. And we multitasked running data sets, and they didn't run at the same time either. So the computer would run data set A for a few minutes and then data set B, but it was back and forth between the data sets. That's exactly what our brains have to do. So if you're in the middle of something and you are interrupted, you are taking more time to do that thing. It takes on average 20 minutes to get back to flow. So you're working on something, you're functioning on all cylinders, it is genius, and then your phone dings because somebody is texting you. You answer the text, you try to get back to flow. If you get back at all, it'll take you at least 20 minutes. Now, when I work with managers in industry, I tell them open door policies are an amazing thing, but right? I want people to know that I'm here for you. And I also need people to know that I have stuff I have to get done. So if it's going to take me 20 minutes to get back to flow, then I need to make sure I'm turning everything off. I need people to know this is my power mode. So when I am in my office, if I need no interruptions, I let everybody know, hey, it's me time right now. I need 20 minutes. I need 30 minutes. I need an hour because I have these things that I have to get done. Obviously, we want to let people know that that's what we're doing because we don't want them to go, oh, Devin's not responding in the group text and we need answers, right? So we need to communicate, this is when I'm smartest, so this is when I am offline for other people. Also, so you're back to this, the multitasking, it slows you down. When I work with leaders in industry, I talk about everybody comes to the meeting and everybody has got their technology. Now we justify, right? So I'm sitting in a faculty meeting and I'm checking my email. Then an important email comes up and as soon as I start reading it, my ears are no longer able to process the information that's happening, right? So not only does it slow us down, it also keeps me from paying attention. When you think about how much studying you have to do for some of your classes, if you are on your computer, on your phone, and you're paying attention, you will have to study longer than the people that are truly present in the class. One of the things that I think we forgot about when we started doing online education, and certainly during COVID when everybody was thrown online, we forget how much embedding of information happens because we're sitting around talking about what we've been working on. So be very careful when you're with your study group. Put your phone off to the side, unless you need it to look something up to confirm that what you're talking about is true, right? Multitasking slows us down, it causes mistakes. Meetings, study groups become a waste of time because our attentions are not here in the moment. Here's a huge statistic that I want all of you to think about. When we switch between tasks, like those giant computers, we have a 40% loss in productivity. 40%. So that means things are taking you twice as long. So when I teach some of my classes, right now I'm teaching culminating classes, so they're project-based. But when I teach classes that actually require student back and forth, and there are exams and assignments, that 40% loss in productivity means they are going to be spending 40% more time outside of the classroom. Why are they coming to class if they're going to have 40% more time to make sure that they're at par with the people that were present? So that's huge for us when we think about when I'm working on my homework, when I am reading through the text, or I've got research I have to read. If I'm reading the research and then I'm on my phone and then I'm back to the research, 40% loss of productivity. Multitasking uses your working memory, which is our short-term memory storage. We lose creativity. This one is huge. Already, school has attempted to beat your creativity out of you, right? And you spent, you're in grad school, so you're in at least grade 17, right? So we spend probably 15 of those years trying to get you to do the things the same way everybody else does. Now we know in industry that we need you to be more creative. When we multitask, we're taking away the energy that allows us to be creative because we're just getting things done. When we run out of time, how many of you have said this on assignments? By the way, I'm not saying this is the wrong thing to say, but when we run out of time to do something, we're like, well, it's the best I could do. I only have 45 minutes. Guilty? Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more on that one because sometimes we really do have to make choices with our time, right? But the mistakes, it creates a mediocrity. And over time, that starts to tell us, oh, maybe this just isn't something I'm good at, or maybe this isn't my thing, right? The conversation in our head takes over. So we need to stop multitasking. Let's talk tactics. I already gave you what I would say is my favorite, and that is using sleep to solve problems. The other favorite obviously is knowing when you're the smartest. So we'll get into some nitty gritty. I highly recommend you start tracking your time. If people have questions, just yell them out and I'll stop. Awesome. Start tracking your time. When I teach managers, will do this in Excel and just send them out an Excel spreadsheet. For you, I would do it in Excel. I would put every day of the week on here, and I would start tracking in 15-minute increments. And here's the thing I don't want you to judge. You need to have time to BS with your friends. You need to go out and have a beer or a glass of wine or go to Topgolf. You need to do those things. Human beings need time off, right? We need to have fun. So track that too. What I would like for you to do is take an entire week, maybe even 2 weeks, and then look at it and say, okay, it looks like I regularly have this time. So maybe I should start blocking this time to do for schoolwork. Then I'm going to look at, hold on, I think I'm smartest at midnight. What that means is I've got to get enough sleep that at midnight I'm functioning on all cylinders, right? So I then will put in my tracker where I've already tracked where my time goes. And then I would go, okay, I'm going to highlight that I think I'm smartest in these hours. I am smartest first thing in the morning. When I was in graduate school, I got up every morning at 4:30 because I had to be up before my house was up. I had a 2-year-old and I was working full time, right? So I'm smartest at 4:30 in the morning, and I know that gives me 90 minutes before anybody else is in my space going, hi, can I have cereal? Or hi, what do you have, right? Because that's all interruptions. So you figure that out by tracking your time. Give yourself a couple of weeks, because here's the other thing I want you to think about. Who randomly texts you when you're in the middle of something important? Like if you were a manager and I was doing a training class for you, I would say, who interrupts you when you're doing your most important work? Because you probably also have people that regularly interrupt you when you are in flow. And it's important to know that because we also want to manage relationships. We don't want people to go, oh my gosh, she's so productive. She's also a jerk, right? So then I'm going to message that person and go, okay, these are my smart hours. These are my offline hours. If the world is on fire and you need something or you need me, please, you're welcome to text me, or you're welcome to email me, or you're welcome to call me. In general, during these 2 hours on these days, I am off of the socials, I'm off of my texts, and I'm off of my email. This time tracker will help you with that. We are in information overload. Because the information is there doesn't mean that we need to be giving it time. So this method I'm going to share with you, I do in my email. How many of you are guilty of kind of cruising through email really quickly and not really reading it because you think you're skimming it for what's important? Yeah. Same. In the hospitality college, we have our Bogner Career Center sends out so many emails, and they're really important because it's, this person is going to be on campus. You're going to want to meet them. This company is hiring for this. Really important stuff. But I have students tell me all the time that there's too much, right? So then we have to skim it. And then what do I do with it? If I skim it and I keep it, I end up skimming it twice before I delete it. So this that I'm going to talk about right now is really, what do we do with all of this communication, whether it's in a text or in an email? So it's called the TRAF method. Toss, right? This is junk. I don't need it. If it's actual paper, I need to get it off of my desk. I can shred it. I can trash it. I can delete it. So that's something that I'm not going to need to refer to again, right? If there's something that I need to refer, I need to give to somebody else. Maybe I need to delegate something. I do this a lot with things that come through from my kids' school because I know I can't handle all the things. So I will forward with a note to my husband, helping him be the partner that he wants to be, right? Because we raise a child together. So I will forward it with a note. I happen to have a couple of people that work with me in the SAND Center. I do this all the time, right? So that now it is not on my plate anymore. Does it require action? If I can do it in 2 minutes, I need to do it right now because I have looked at it once, action is required, and I want this off of my plate. If I act on it right now, I could get it done in 2 minutes, then I can delete it. If I can't act on it right now, I'm going to figure out the method for me for putting that away so I don't forget it's there. For me, if I act on it, it's done, it gets deleted or it gets filed into one of the I need to keep this forever files. If it's something that I cannot or do not need to do right this minute, I turn it back on so it looks like it's unread. I have friends that very successfully have a file in their email that is things that still need to be done. Okay, when I have those, I forget that those are things that still need to be done. So that doesn't work for me. It might work for you. I have also seen people that will have folders in their email with the days of the week. So if something came in today, but I don't have to address it until Friday, I could file it into my Friday folder. I do have to remember that I have those folders, right? I tend to be somebody that manages my time really closely. So I have to be careful with tricks like that. I still need it in front of me, right? So if you're not somebody that doesn't need it in front of you, try playing with those folders. Filing, electronic, if it's immediate, physical, we would do periodically, right? So if you still work with paper, and I hope not any of you do, but if you still have stacks of paper, then weekly you could have those things filed. Obviously, electronic files can be done immediately. I have a love-hate relationship with Google Drive because it's always there when I need it, but it's the, what did I call that? I can't find it, that is a concern for me, right? So the filing things away so that you can find them, I love that on my physical computer, the search function is a bit better than it is on Google Drive, right? So the toss, forward it to somebody else, take care of it right now if it's quick, file it away if you're going to need to be able to find it later. If you have challenges with people that you email with regularly and their subject lines aren't clear, right? How many of you have tried to find an email, but you're like, what was that subject line? It's not here anywhere. And then I'll look up somebody's name and I get 4,000 emails, right, that come up in the search. It's okay to change subject lines, resend it to yourself, and then file it. That way, it's a clearer subject line. My husband is the worst. He'll send me emails, and the subject line will be stuff. So I tried to train him. I don't recommend you do that with partners. And he still will send emails that say stuff in the subject line. So I will forward it back to myself, having changed the subject line so that it's really clear. And then I know how to find it. And that way I'm not at other people's mercy for how they type their subject lines. Okay, so we're going to talk about planning. Somebody already said this. Planning for the day, for the week, for the month, and for the year. It depends on the day. When I was getting myself in the habit of planning, I would make sure that I had 20 minutes every morning. I would make sure that on a Sunday afternoon, I had 20 minutes to look at the week. Because it's such a habit for me, 10 minutes in the morning is probably more than I need. But here's why you need to do it. How many of you have had the entire day fall apart because something randomly occurred? Yeah, the things that we don't control. If I've gone through my list of things that need to be done and I need to know where my meetings are, my problem-solving machine will reprioritize everything on that list for me, even without me attending to it. So that, let's say I have, how many of you woken up to a flat tire, right? Those are the things that we don't plan ahead for. Well, I needed to be in a meeting, I needed to get this done, I had to take care of this. So while I'm on the phone with AAA, waiting for the guy to come because I am clearly too pretty to change my own tire, my brain is taking care of Okay, so I'm gonna juggle this to over here, that meeting can be moved over here. And then when I actually start thinking about it, my brain already has the answers for me. If you are an evening person, or if going into the next day is better for you, then you look at 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. Stephen Covey teaches in the 7 Habits, so this will sound familiar if you've read the book or if you're about to read the book. He talks about we all play different roles, right? One of your roles is student. I have a child, so one of my roles is parent. One of my roles is spouse. One of my roles is friend. And so we would look at what are the roles that you play, and in the next month, in the next year, this week, today, what are the big rocks for each of those roles? And that way, I'm not just thinking about, I have schoolwork to do, or well, I have to work and I go to school and that's all. Well, I also have amazing humans in my life that I need to see because it feeds my soul. So how do I look at the week ahead, look at the next 2 weeks ahead, and message those friends and say, I need time with you, you're my tribe. These are my open time slots. When are you all available? Those big rocks, midterms, anything that's important to my kid has to be important to me, right? That's a big rock. So my daughter is a cross-country runner. Obviously, she doesn't get that from me. She has very long legs. She also doesn't get that from me. She's an enigma. Their team made it to state for the first time since 2018. They are super excited. Who knows if they go again? And I had 1 week, right? From regionals, state is Saturday. What was on the calendar for Saturday? Because I obviously have to be there. This is a big deal for her, right? And it's in Reno. So I have a week to figure out what has to be juggled, what has to be moved. And if I don't have the plan, I don't know what has to be juggled. So the plan helps us put things on the calendar, helps us then juggle what's on the calendar. And I keep doing this like it's a physical calendar, but obviously we do that on our phones, right? If you need a physical calendar to get you in the habit, they do still sell them, and then you can actually open it up and look at the whole thing, right? So when we're talking big rocks, I want you to think about what is most important to me as a student this year, this month, this week, today or tomorrow. What are the most important things that I have to be aware of as a parent this year, this month, this week, today or tomorrow? So that those things go on our calendar first. There's a great, I found it on the internet. It's very similar to what Covey teaches, because he talks about, the big rocks, and then if I fill up my time with the sand, I don't have the space for the rocks, but if I put the rocks in first, the sand can fill around it. So for us, the sand is the little things that are task driven and are really easy to accomplish that we tend to get really busy doing. And then we run out of time for the important stuff. There's an article on the internet that talks about it's rocks, sand, and beer, I think, right? And so I got to plan for the big important things, that's the rocks, the sand's the little things that have to get done eventually, and the beer and in the visual is pouring it over the sand and the rocks, because you've always got to make time to have a beer with your friends. Now, not saying you have to go have a beer, but spending time with our friends is really important for us, right? So this is right out of Covey. These are the quadrants of the time management matrix. The important quadrant, you see the top, actually, the top half is things that are important, and we have those things that are urgent and those things that are not urgent. The not important is at the lower half. That's things that are urgent, but not important, and not important and not urgent. Now, the whole purpose of these quadrants is to get us to think in terms of above the line. If it is not important, but it's urgent, it's deceptive. Not important might be some of the emails we get, some of the texts that we get. But it seems urgent because my phone just buzzed. Or if I'm working on something on my computer and I get the little ding, I just got a new email. Or worse, instant messaging, right? Here's where I would urge you to think how much time you spend in quadrant 4. Quadrant 4, these are things that are not important and they are not urgent. Now, my need to lay on the couch and binge watch Only Murders in the Building. It is not important and it is not urgent, but it's fantastic. So if you haven't seen Only Murders in the Building, you have to watch it. That is something that doesn't have to be done. Here's what you will find. The more time you spend putting out fires, which is quadrant 1, the important and the urgent, the more time I spend in quadrant 1, the more time my body and my brain is going to want to spend in quadrant 4 because I'm fried, I'm exhausted. So when we're planning, we want to think about what isn't. We don't want things to be urgent. That flat tire is going to be urgent, but we don't plan for that, right? We want to spend as much time planning before things become urgent so that the urgent things are the one-offs. They're not our everyday. Quadrant 1, the urgent and important, is the quadrant of necessity. Quadrant 2, which is what I'm going to ask you to spend the most time doing, is the quadrant of productivity and balance. The problem with this quadrant is it's not urgent. It's only important. So the things in my productivity and balance quadrant get knocked down my priority list when the urgent knocks on my door. So let's talk about examples of that. My ability to plan monthly, weekly, daily. If I'm not planning ahead, everything becomes a crisis. If I'm good at crisis management, I don't worry about planning ahead because why bother? I'm really good in the moment. We know that being really good in the moment, really good at managing crisis, really good at putting out fires means I just create more fires, which then leads to mediocre performance because I only had 45 minutes to get that done. We want to spend time planning ahead, taking care of ourselves, planning to take care of ourselves so that we cut down on the number of items that have to be taken care of right now that are urgent. You will always have some urgent, but we want less urgent. Quadrant 3 is the quadrant of deception because it feels urgent even though it's not. Quadrant 4 is the quadrant of waste and excess. Many years ago, I was working with a casino company and there was an assessment for this that helped managers see how much time they spent in their workday in each of these quadrants. And I remember it like it was yesterday, the IT guy. Now, IT guys in hotels who also interact with guests are dealing with everybody else's crisis, right? I can't get on the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi in my room isn't working. I downloaded this thing and my whole computer is seized up. So the IT guy was always in the urgent quadrant. And he, when he got his test results, said, "Oh my gosh, this is why my wife is always yelling at me." And I said, "Oh, share with us, why is your wife always yelling at you?" He said, "Because when I get home from work, I want to sit and play video games by myself for several hours because that allows me to decompress." And I said, "Oh, you don't have kids, right?" And he said, "Oh no, I have 2. And I was like, "Oh, if you were married to me, I would kill you," right? But because he spent his whole day at work in quadrant 1, all he wanted to do when he got home was quadrant 4. So think about this when it's easier not to plan. Because the more time I spend in quadrant 1, the more time I'm going to need in quadrant 4 to recharge from what feels like burnout. So here are just some samples of what each of these means. The quadrant 1, these are crises, pressing problems, deadline-driven projects. The not urgent, preparation, prevention, planning, relationship building, recreation. So that's like ideation. That's coming up with new ways to tackle old problems. Values clarification, what's important to you needs to happen in quadrant 2. I have a friend who texted me first thing this morning, and her boss is leaving the nonprofit that she's the number 2 for, and they want to know if she wants to be the number 1, and she's really struggling with, do I want to do that? And I said, I don't know what's keeping you from saying yes, because obviously you're capable. So you need to go do some journaling on why is now not a good time, or what are your most important values right now, right? Because that knowing who we are and where our true north is, quadrant 2 is not something we tend to make time for, and yet helps us make decisions. Things from quadrant 3, needless interruptions, unnecessary reports, unimportant meetings, phone calls, mail, email, other people's minor issues, the drama that happens, right, with our friend group, feels urgent, probably not important when we look at the balance of using our time. Trivia work, irrelevant items, time wasters, escape activities, excessive TV, internet, and relaxation are all quadrant 4. Having said that, relaxation is important. It just shouldn't take up as much time as sometimes it does because we feel burned out. So we want to be spending our time above the line. The urgent is always going to happen. There is going to be a crisis from time to time, but the more time we spend preparing and planning and making sure that our relationships are strong, the less we will spend in quadrant 1. So our goal is to work above this line. Harnessing our brain. So I want you to think about what goes on your calendar versus what goes on your to-do list. So if it has to happen at a specific time, my class times when I teach, always the first thing that goes on my calendar as I prepare for the next semester, because that class time, if it's in person, is not going to change. I also know for me, for when I teach online, if I do not have time set aside to get things done in my class, even if it's asynchronous, then I get really far behind because it's important, but it's not urgent. So I put it on my calendar. Items that go on my to-do list, things that need to be done, but don't necessarily need to be done at a specific time. When we plan weekly and daily, I make a to-do list that is per day. So if something needs to be done, I use my calendar sometimes for this, and you've probably done this too. Like in Google Calendar, you can take an email and turn it into an event, right? So I'll set reminders for myself in my calendar, or I create an actual to-do list. If it doesn't have to be done at a certain time, that means it can be juggled. I do have to be careful though, because if I don't plan for something, let's say we have a big paper due on Friday, Monday and Tuesday, I'm not in crisis mode. That's really the time where I'm preparing my brain and my information, right? So while it's on my to-do list, I do an ABC. Laundry might be on my to-do list. It's probably a C, right? Unless I don't have any clean clothes, then it's a what? Right, it's an A. Same thing with all our other tasks. That paper that I need to be working on, I'm going to put it on my calendar or on my to-do list as a B. Or I'm going to block time. Sometimes people have to play mind games with themselves to block time to do things to prepare. If you're somebody that says, you know what, I am way better at the last minute, I call BS. You are justifying, right? Now here's where I am better. I like to think things through for a long time. And it's not even that I'm spending my hours thinking it through. I'll read through it and then I'll just let my brain noodle on it. So it may take me the entire week to write that paper because my brain is helping me bring pieces together. So you have to plan for the time to make those things happen that you won't make happen. If you're somebody that as long as it's on your to-do list, you make it happen, then you don't have to play those tricks on your calendar, right? You have to sleep. I do not like testing. I don't like testing in K through 12. I don't like testing at college. I think the only thing that testing proves is that you can cram information into your short-term memory, you can take a test on it and you can forget it. Well, that doesn't benefit you in my industry. In hospitality, nobody cares if you can memorize the one right answer because there's a whole lot of right answers, right? So when you're cramming for your test, you're not sleeping. When you're not sleeping, your brain is not making those connections for you that it could be doing. Everybody has a different sweet spot for sleep. It's plus or minus, right? We do know from the research that regularly getting less than 6 hours of sleep for most people is detrimental. I know for me, my minimum to be able to function properly on all cylinders is 7. If I randomly get 8 hours, I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm genius today, right? So that's me. Figure out yours. Now, I once knew a woman that couldn't sleep more than 4 hours, and I was super jealous. Now, the research says that people that need less sleep actually don't live as long. So maybe we're just telling ourselves we don't need that as much sleep, but you have to sleep. So if the choices are cram for this test or sleep, I'm going to tell you to read through everything that's going to be on that test and go to sleep. And then when you wake up, your brain is the spongiest right before sleep and right when you wake. Read through it again, but you've got to sleep. This is an old-fashioned Covey planner, right? So you'll see it's got, although it's a really terrible view, you can see that the hours are along the right-hand side. I'm on the left page. On the left-hand side is where you can make your to-do list. The right page is where you make notes for the day. These are just things you have to remember. This is where, if I were doing it on paper, I would put my letters next to the things that have to be done today. Get A's, the things that it would be nice if they got done would be B's, C's. I don't do any D's, I don't bother. When I keep a running to-do list on paper, which I regularly do because I go from meetings to meetings, sometimes I have to turn those things into an electronic notification. But always, if you're somebody that likes to write notes, trap them all in the same place. How many of us are Post-it note addicted? Anybody? And then you're like, where is that Post-it note, right? And it's on somebody's shoe and they've already left. So it's tracking things, making sure that everything is in the same place or in an easy to find place, because then we're wasting time trying to find, what did I do with that article? What did I do with that email? So making sure that your systems support your efficiencies. I'm going to argue that taking care of yourself is the most important part of all of this. I call it soul feeding. So Devin and I are artists. The things that I need to do to feed my soul involve artistic things. And I know if I haven't gone to go see a show or some immersive something, if it's been too long, I can feel it. And I start to feel like I have less energy. All of us need to figure out when we need to take care of ourselves and when we need to sleep, because your body is telling you. Your body will always tell you what you need. It's whether or not we're listening, right? My dissertation research is on emotional labor, which is, I define it, this isn't really the definition, but for hospitality employees, I define it as the amount of nice we get paid to deliver. And over time, that level of nice and faking it eats away at our soul. That research has been instrumental in telling us what are the best ways for human beings to deal with stress. In hospitality, I like to call hospitality a hotbed of bad choices. In hospitality, people that work in restaurants or hotels tend to deal with the stress of their day by going out and drinking too much with their friends after work. When I was in graduate school on the ground, there was a fair amount of that happening, right? That, oh my God, I'm so tired after staying up all night studying for the test. Let's go have too many drinks. Here's what the research tells us. The healthiest ways to deal with long-term stress, obviously eating right. From an exercise perspective, yoga is brilliant because it's also mindfulness, and mindfulness meditation is number one for helping us become resilient to the stress of too much, right? Also, any type of exercise would be number three. When I did my research, I studied three or four, I don't even remember now, different employee groups for Four Seasons hotels and resorts. And one of the bellmen here said, "Oh, Finley, this is ridiculous. I never take anything home." And I said, "Well, tell me how you do that." He's a distance runner. So his wife dropped him off to work every morning and he ran 10 miles home at the end of the day, of his work day, which is, as I understand it, although not a runner, also a form of meditation. It's just moving meditation, right? So that mental wellness ties into the physical wellness, eating right, getting sleep, and then your batteries are recharged and ready to move forward. Yeah.
Question in the chat. Can you repeat the definition again from your research that starts how much nice we can?
Oh, see, this is my definition. It's not the actual research definition. I call it the amount of nice we get paid to deliver. So in hospitality, the expectation in a luxury hotel is very different than the expectation at McDonald's. And so if I have, Four Seasons is a great example. If you work at the front desk at Four Seasons and somebody says, "You've ruined my entire vacation because somebody undercooked my pancakes." Well, that's ridiculous. And I want to say that's ridiculous, but I can't, right? So it's, "I'm terribly sorry you've had that experience. Allow me to call the restaurant," right? And it's that caring that has to happen, which, being a human being requires a certain amount of that as well. So I call that the amount of nice we get paid to deliver. Any other questions in the chat?
That is it for now.
Okay, I think I'm opening it up for questions in like 1 minute.
Okay.
I love this quote, which is kind of ubiquitous, right? Everybody's read it. It is from Alice in Wonderland. "If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." So the first step in making sure you're getting the right things done, it's not just being efficient and marking things off your list, it's knowing what are the most important things you need to do based on the roles that you play. How many of us have turned in an assignment and you went, "Well, that wasn't my best work, but at least it's done"? Okay. My kid is a freshman in high school this year. And we've had to have conversations over, you can't do everything at 100% if you want to do all of these things. And it was like midnight and she was crying and she still had homework to do. And I said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Let's pull up your grades. Which of these assignments is the most important based on how you're doing in all of your classes?" How many of you have done that? Okay. I would say that also works for work, right? Of all the things I have to get done, what has to be done right now? What can I call somebody and say, "Hey, I am buried and I can't get this done"? If there's nothing I can do that for, what can I buy myself some time doing? Right? Because if you find yourself in a place where you can't possibly give everything 100%, what matters most and what matters least? Values clarification is huge because life is like that, right? I can't win Mother of the Year, Spouse of the Year, Teacher of the Year, all in the same year, right? Of course I can. It's how you balance them, right? Something's got to give. So it's, okay, what can I have somebody else take care of this one time? For this upcoming weekend, I'm not going to miss state because there was nothing more pressing than that. Now, if something more pressing was there, I would have missed state cross country and I would have had the conversation with my kid. But there's nothing more pressing than that right now, right? So it's how do you know what your true north is? And your true north will be different than my true north, will be different than Alistair's true north. That's how we figure out what's the most important, where we spend the most time. All right, what questions do you have?
Cameron, I'm gonna stop the recording here and shrink the screen so we can see you, and I know we're at the top of the hour, so if you have to drop off, feel free.